Maggie Herndon, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
My wife made sure to tell me to tell you that she really likes you.
So well, the feeling's mutual.
Yeah, there's a message from Mariana for the day. Let's jump in on autism right out of the gate.
Okay.
What is autism? How would you define it?
Personally or
yeah, we can go personally. How do you experience it, and how do most people experience it? Because I know it varies quite a lot.
I think in the medical world, they see it as a developmental disorder, which it is. But it's also medical. It's gut related. It's, a lot of some kids have autoimmune issues, allergies, sensitivities to food. So for us, there are a lot of medical components as well as developmental delays.
Now, with we'll get into this, but your son Chase is how old?
He'll be 10 in May.
Okay. Lincoln will be 10 in August. Okay. Yeah, I knew they were real close in age. So now, correct me if I'm wrong, but some kids with autism will tend to be sort of aggressive and maybe even violent at times. But Chase doesn't seem to have any of that.
It did experience a little bit early on.
Okay.
When he regressed, there were some behaviors, some physical self-injury, and just some aggression towards us. I think mostly out of frustration and not being able to express his wants and needs and opinions about things.
Like what age? What age?
He regressed when he was between 15 and 18 months, 18 and 20 months.
Okay.
So we started noticing a lot of massive tantrums around that time, and he would just lay out on the floor and bang his head against the floor or hit himself in the head with his hands, and just things that he didn't, it wasn't typical toddler behavior. It was like to an extreme.
And this is when he's 18 months.
18 to 24, yeah.
Oh, wow. Super young.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Mothers Advocating Medical Marijuana for Autism? They're out of Texas.
That sounds familiar, but I haven't done a lot of research.
Yeah. I ran across them just in the last few months. I forget what I was looking up. But Mothers Advocating for Medical Marijuana for Autism.
For seizure control? Because a lot of kids have.
Yeah, it was seizure control, and it really helps with the aggression. Like some of them, some of them were like 18-year-olds getting pretty violent, pretty aggressive, and that was really helpful.
Yeah.
Have you tried any of that with Chase?
We've done CBD.
Okay.
We've never done medical marijuana. We just haven't felt the need or felt like he would benefit from that.
Yeah. So if he's not now, does he occasionally have like aggressive behavior now?
Not really.
Okay. So there wouldn't be, I don't know. You wouldn't have, if you're not having seizures or aggressive behavior, then you wouldn't have those same reasons to use medical marijuana.
I mean, some people I think tend to use it instead of sleeping drugs because a lot of kids have sleep issues. I guess like the ones with severe seizures, it would be beneficial because that's also a comorbid condition with autism. So the older kids especially, the bigger they get and they start outpowering their parents.
Right.
It can be scary.
Yeah, I bet it can be scary.
Yeah. And I have friends who definitely deal with that to some degree. We've just been really lucky in that respect.
Have you had to deal with it at all since like little Chase was a toddler?
Not really. There'll just be an occasional, like he'll be frustrated and maybe like swat at us. Okay. But nothing that I would.
About like a normal 9-year-old.
I know.
How do you, where do you get support? Where do you get community? Like, how do you work through this? And then we can go back, and I'd kind of love to hear you kind of tell the story from the beginning. But like now with Chase being almost 10 years old, do you have friends that are dealing with this too? Or have you found a community somewhere? Or like, where's your support system?
Yeah. So early on, when we were living in Jackson, which is where he was born, we had no support. We didn't know anyone there with a child on the spectrum. There were no resources. It was really hard. And when we moved to Nashville, we moved here specifically for an ABA-based school that we had gotten him enrolled in.
What's ABA-based school?
Applied behavioral analysis. So it's the therapy. It's like the gold standard therapy for children with autism. It's clinically proven for behavioral, just behavioral therapy is what it is. So we started him in that school when he was 3.5 and found a really great community of parents there that I still keep up with them to this day. I mean, he was there until he was right before kindergarten. So maybe like 2.5 years.
Yep. And this was in Nashville somewhere?
It was.
And this is the whole reason you moved from Jackson?
Yes.
So, okay.
Yeah. It's no longer open, but we've kept in touch with pretty much everyone we were there with, and they did a great job of encouraging parents to kind of get together and communicate, and we had monthly parent gatherings and that kind of thing. So,
what does your I know where you go to church, Christ Pres, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't one of the reasons you guys started going there too was because they had really good kind of programs for special needs kids?
They have an amazing special needs ministry.
Okay. And what is all that? And it's not just for autism, right?
Right. Anything with any child, or even they have a great adult program too for all kinds of special needs. And
what do they do? Like what is this program?
They have a special Saturday. It's at Christ Pres. And so they have a special Saturday once a month where they have volunteers come in like one-on-one with the kids, and they just do activities. And it's a way to provide respite for families all across Nashville. It's not just for church community or not just for the church community. It's for anyone in Nashville. And they do limit it because of resources, but it's kind of a first come, first serve. And they really just want to give parents about a 3-hour window, and siblings can come, and they have buddies for the siblings just to give them a break to play with other people. And it's a really sweet program.
And then they also do stuff on Sunday mornings.
They do.
As well,
they have an inspirations class for the older, and then they just started an inspirations junior for, I think it's like 16 and under.
Okay. And what is that? Like, is it like a section of kids' church that they have?
It's just an adapted Sunday school lesson. So they kind of break it down. They go in with all the other kids and watch the videos and that kind of thing. And then they come back and they break it down, or they show them, shorter adapted clips of the lesson. Okay.
Gotcha. And this is during service, or?
It's in our core hour.
Okay. Which is where you have like seminars or Sunday school or whatever.
Right.
Okay. Gotcha.
But during our main church lesson, they have kids' church, but they provide buddies if you want one. And so every Sunday we have a different buddy that will meet us and take Chase to the kids' lesson, and then they come back in and he sits through the end of the sermon.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's just wonderful that they have that program. I think that's really, really great.
It's been such a blessing to us.
Yeah, and do you think they developed that out of a need, or was it more the philosophy like if you build it, they will come? Like, do you think they just were like, all right, we want to offer these things for the people around Nashville that are looking for more support in this area, and they started the program, and then these people started coming, like which would have happened for you guys, right? Or do they just happen to have, realize that they have a need in their church, or don't you know how this got started?
I'm not really sure, but I feel like there was probably a need. There's some elders in our church that have older kids, either on the spectrum or with Down syndrome.
Okay.
So I feel like it was born out of a need.
I see.
And then they just realized how big the need was, and it's grown exponentially even since we first started going there, which hadn't been that long.
Yeah. Yep. So do you have, do you go to the Saturday thing once a month, by the way?
We have done it a couple of times, but I feel like we have a really great support system, and we have great caregivers that give Chase and I a good respite. So I almost feel guilty using up a space for someone that might need it more.
Oh, okay.
Because I know there are a lot of families that really struggle with finding caregivers that they trust.
Yep.
With their kids especially. So, I almost am hesitant to take a spot from someone that might need it more.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, when you say caregivers, what is that?
Like a babysitter or a nanny or somebody that can just come in. Like, I know we're pretty specific about who we trust leaving them with, more so just because I want someone that understands what autism is and specific, like Chase's specific needs and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yep. He also does therapy of some kind, correct?
He does. He does speech, OT, and ABA.
Okay. What's OT?
Occupational therapy.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. And these therapists come to your house?
Well, we do both. They come to our house and we go to a clinic setting. And then he gets some therapy in school also.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yep.
So the recommendation for ABA, like when we got his diagnosis, was 40 hours a week.
Wow.
That's like a full-time job.
Wow.
I know.
And
at the time, insurance didn't even cover it. So
wow.
That's why we went to the Brown Center. It was just an ABA-based school, and it was, I'm trying to remember. I think he was only there for the afternoon hours or the morning hours.
Okay. Yep. So when you moved to Nashville because of this one school, right? Mm-hmm. And that school wound up getting shut down.
It did.
Then where did you go then?
At that point, we were so ABA was not covered by insurance in the state of Tennessee. We were highly considering moving to Indianapolis. The state of Indiana has amazing ABA services and school programs, and it's 100% covered by insurance. So we were in the process of basically like job hunting and looking for houses to move. And I think it was a few months, it was in the summer, it was a few months before he was going to start kindergarten. And I met a woman on the playground at Creve Hall, and she was like, you really ought to just give this school a shot.
Oh, you were living in Creve Hall at the time?
We were.
Oh, okay.
We've lived here. We moved into a rental before we are in the house we're in now. So we've been in the neighborhood all along.
Oh, okay. And people don't know this, but we're basically next door neighbors.
Right.
We moved to Creve Hall last summer, and you guys moved from Jackson straight to Creve Hall.
We did. Okay. We were a few streets away on a rental, but we moved to our current house in 2016.
Okay. So this person you met at the Creve Hall playground mentioned another school for Chase to go to?
Well, Creve Hall, the elementary school.
Oh.
Yeah. And she used to be a special ed teacher in Williamson County and just spoke really highly of the school itself and the services they offered, and just, really encouraged me to give it a shot. And we just, I think God led us in that direction. And it, I felt like meeting her and hearing her encouragement just felt like a sign that maybe we need to just stick it out and give it a shot before we just packed up and moved again.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we're glad you did.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
We are too.
I'm curious what like ongoing education looks like for you and Chase, your husband. Like is this something that you are like Googling frequently or looking for more information frequently, like weekly or whatever, trying to see kind of, is there anything new out there, or even like as little Chase gets older, do his symptoms change with his age?
Definitely.
Like, I'm just kind of curious, like from a continuing education standpoint, like how do you keep up with information and knowledge on how best to handle little Chase?
Yeah. So early on, it was a lot of sleepless nights. Google was my best friend. And we lost a lot of sleep just staying up and reading everything. And I think we're at a point now where it's not that we're not looking. Mm-hmm. We're just trying to take it day by day. I think we exhausted everything we could possibly exhaust in the last probably 6 years. Basically, since we've been in Nashville, we shifted our focus of what we thought autism is, or what we think autism is. And we've kind of gotten to a point where we feel good about what we're doing to help him. Mm-hmm. And there are always things, but we're just trying to take a breath right now and enjoy where he is.
Yeah. And is it the type of thing too, where you've been working with this for 6 or 7 years? you know Chase really well now. You can kind of and so you don't have this mad rush of you don't have the need for a mad rush of new information like you did
at
18
months. It was just
months.
like urgent searching, just desperate for answers and cures and like anything that we could do to help him early on. And it took a toll emotionally and physically. I mean, our health was declining too, just from the stress of it. And I think we realized like we have to take a step back and focus on ourselves and our mental health as well to be able to better help him.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Can you kind of tell us the story of, just when little Chase was born? And is this something that he showed signs of right away or as he grew older? Like, can you just give us the story?
Yeah.
So you and Big Chase are, when did you get married, by the way?
We were married in November of 2008.
Oh, we beat you.
Yeah.
We were married in 2006.
Yeah.
Okay,
so we were married in 2008 and we got pregnant September of the next year. So we had dated for a while. So we knew we wanted to start having kids before Chase was 30.
Okay.
Which was pretty close to that. So we got pregnant and it was a very normal pregnancy. And, at that point, I'll just preface by saying like, we lived a very typical lifestyle of like sad diet, like, just what most people eat, like fast food, junk food. I mean,
you and Chase?
We both did.
Big Chase?
Yeah, our lifestyle has shifted dramatically from how it was then.
And at this point, are you interested in a healthy lifestyle? Are you interested in eating well, but you just don't want to? Or it's like, it's not even really on your radar?
I just think, yes, we worked out. We wanted to be healthy and fit. And we didn't even know anything about what we know now.
Yeah.
So to us, like, health food was like Slim Fast bars or like fad stuff.
Right.
It was not Whole Foods or.
I remember being at SMBI, which was a Bible college where I met Mariana. So like, I don't know, I was probably 20. And my diet was Slim Fast bars, beef sticks, and like, oh, this is protein. Like, it must be healthy. Everything was processed.
Yes. I mean, it was processed diet food, Diet Coke instead of Coke or light beer instead of Budweiser. I don't know. But it was just, we lived in Jackson, which was a very small town. There was no kind of like health food store. Kroger was the only grocery store.
But also, to your credit, I do feel like, don't you think that times were different in 08, 09?
Totally.
That's almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, it was 10 years ago now. And I feel like the awareness for better eating in general is much better now than it was 10 years ago.
Yes.
So I think you can give yourself some credit.
Yeah. But all that to say, like, it was just, I craved Eggo waffles for breakfast every morning. And it was just a normal pregnancy. And he ended up being breech. I had a C-section.
And by the way, little Chase was your first kid. Yeah.
Firstborn, yes. Yep. So I had no roadmap for comparison or anything like that. We had moved into a new house in December after I got pregnant. And so we did a little bit of work to the house, moved in, and then he was born, and it was, just a normal birth, like C-section, and he was developing healthy and normal, and we just were following, basic guidelines of our pediatrician and doing all the things that we thought we were supposed to do and checking all the boxes and, like most people. He was breastfed until about 6 months. And when I switched him over to formula, he had a really hard time adjusting and was having severe stomach cramps and just some GI issues. I thought it was constipation, and we ended up figuring out that he couldn't tolerate the milk proteins in normal formula. So we had to be on Nutramigen, which was the most expensive one. And the milk proteins are more broken down to be able to be absorbed and tolerated. So that, looking back, should have been the first sign. But, at the time we just thought, whatever, he needs to be on Nutramigen.
That should have been a sign for autism?
No, just maybe like
what's
that
going
he was
on?
sensitive or just like having, maybe some stomach issues or gut issues. I don't know.
Gotcha.
So around the time we switched to formula, he also started getting ear infections. So he had probably 7 or 8 between 6 months and 15 months. And so during that time, he was also getting like all of his normal vaccines.
Okay.
And I had like early on decided, I think I wanted maybe just like space him out. I mean, I didn't really have any basis for that other than like not wanting to poke and prod him a bunch of times.
Right.
So, we did the normal vaccines. I would go in and say, he's got a fever and we're still on antibiotics for this ear infection. I know he's due for a shot, but like, can we wait? And I got a lot of pushback, but I didn't think anything of it. I mean, I trusted my pediatrician and he kept blowing me off and being like, oh, it's fine. Let's just do the shots. And so we did. Yep. And at first it was fine. Like I didn't really notice anything. But I'll never forget after his 15-month shots, we had just gone on a trip to Texas. He had an ear infection and the flight was, I was nervous because of flying and
how was that? Because flying with an ear infection can be awful.
Well, he had been on antibiotics. Okay. So that was taken care of. But when we got back, he needed to do, I think, maybe like the MMRs and the big ones.
Okay.
And it was after that we just started seeing a gradual regression. I mean, he was developing normally. He was pointing at things. He was smiling and engaging and starting to talk and say like the typical first words that kids say. He loved the garbage man and would sit at the window and yell at it every time it would come by. And
at what age?
That was probably 15 months, 15 to 18 months.
So I think Arya's about that age.
Yeah.
So probably about the age that Arya is right now. Okay.
And I mean, a lot of similarities in behavior, just, curious about the world and playing with toys, watching TV, following us around. Just, he was the best baby. He's so happy. He slept great. But then that kind of started to fade and shift. And we started noticing that he wouldn't engage with us. His eyes would it was like he was looking through us almost.
Right. Yeah.
And the play skills started to fade. He didn't play with toys appropriately. He started spinning everything he picked up. I mean, every puzzle piece, every Lego, he couldn't even, like, his fine motor skills stopped developing or either went away. I don't know. But like, he couldn't push Legos together. I remember our first session with a ABA therapist. They just simply sat and worked on putting Legos together. And I was like, really? Wow. Yeah.
And what age is this that you got a therapist involved?
It was about 2, I think, at that point. We got TEIS. It's Tennessee Early Intervention Services.
Okay.
Which we had to like search the ends of the earth to find resources for that. Our pediatrician did not help at all. And every time we went to him with concerns of regression or, like, I'm not really sure I want to do this shot. And he was like, it's fine. It's fine. There's no research, no correlation, no proven anything about, vaccines being related to autism. And he's a boy. So, boys develop later and just don't worry about it.
How old was the pediatrician, would you say?
I mean, at the time, probably 10 years older than us, maybe.
Okay.
I mean, he had his own kids.
Okay. Well, because big fan of healthcare, big fan of doctors. Thank God for them. Big fan, but one of the issues can be that sometimes people learn these things in school and then 20 years goes by and sure, they're doing like the formal continuing education that they would need to do. But sometimes there's a lack of interest in like what is new and what's actually working and and furthermore,
and alternative approaches.
Yeah, and alternative approaches. But even, what we knew to be true 20 years ago, a couple of these things actually they're not as good as we thought. And so we're, my point is healthcare is not something you can like go to school for and then know what you need to know for the next 30 years. Right. Like this is constantly, And one of a good example of this is, and I can't remember the stats, but data, just data in general, nothing related to healthcare, just data in general. From 2000 and I want to say from 2005, somewhere between 2005 and 2010 till like 2015. I might have these years a little bit wrong, but just data that we know about and can comb through and everything like that just like went through the roof. In other words, we went through the 70s and 80s and 90s and into 2000 with, still a lot of data, but then you hit this just peak when computers started getting
things were easier to track.
Yeah, things were easy to track, and now there's data point on everything, and it hasn't always been that way.
No.
Like those are the things like in the last 10 years that you should now expect to know and have access to much better information than you did 10 years ago.
Right.
But not everyone does. Not everyone in the medical field does. Not every doctor does. Like they're still going on what they learned 30 years ago in med school. It's crazy.
Well, ironically, we switched pediatricians to a much older doctor. And when we expressed our concerns about whether or not we thought Chase had autism, he looked right at us and was like, I can't diagnose, but I would 100% agree with you because I've got a grandson who's on the spectrum, and, he displays a lot of the same similar characteristics and behaviors. And I was like, well, like,
yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it was a huge relief to be validated in our feelings.
Yeah, for sure. And what I'm saying is not a reflection on a doctor or someone in healthcare. It's not a reflection on their age at all. It's a reflection on their mindset.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I can think of a guy who's what I would consider old, but he's interested in what's latest and greatest. He's interested in what's working, what's not, but then you have these people that just aren't like it's their job, and they go to work and they do their job and they're working on information that's really old.
Yeah.
How about the ear infection? You said 6 or 7 ear infections from like 6 months to like 15 months.
Mm-hmm.
Is that common with autism, or is just like it's kind of like it's a result of other maybe things that are going on with his gut or other poor health?
I think it's probably more gut related.
Okay.
I mean, I do know a lot of babies will develop ear infections specifically to like a dairy allergy. That's like a huge contributing factor to ear infections, but we didn't know anything about that at the time. So
allergies
or like a food sensitivity or just like a dairy allergy. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Dairy is just highly inflammatory to the mucus glands anyway. So a lot of babies, if the mother is breastfeeding and even drinks milk, it can cause issues. It's usually, I mean, it's a very common thing for pediatricians nowadays, especially to recommend cutting out dairy.
I see. Interesting. Mm-hmm. Ear infections are the worst. I have not had an ear infection in years. And when we were at the beach, I got an ear infection for one night, and thank goodness it kind of cleared up very quickly, but it was awful.
Yeah.
There's a couple hours stretch there. It was super, super painful. But with the, and antibiotics are really helpful with clearing that up.
Right.
The challenge with antibiotics then is that it cleans out a lot of good,
bacteria.
Bacteria in the gut, and for like up to 2 years.
Yeah.
But you got to do it, and it's sort of like a vicious cycle because you got to do it, but then it makes the next one more likely.
Right.
But if you don't, then these things can stretch. You can do real damage sometimes if you need antibiotics and you don't take them.
Yeah, and then countering it with probiotics is always helpful. But again, at the time we didn't know that, so we just kept up the cycle of ear infection antibiotic, and then on top of that, the shots on target that he was supposed to have.
Yep.
So I think the combination of all of that, and then just the more we've learned, there's also some genetic components that make people more susceptible or kids more susceptible to gut damage and just mitochondrial damage and brain inflammation, and just, overall, it just tips the bucket.
How would you know, like if Marianne and I were curious about, say, even now or before we had kids, like curious about our genetics and what some of the tendencies might be with our kids, say? Is it like you can go get tested? Can you get your DNA tested or something and see what your kids might be susceptible to?
We found a couple of integrative doctors here who introduced us to this idea and did some blood work and labs on Chase and on myself as well, because I started having some autoimmune issues. And they tested us, and we both have an MTHFR mutation, or two of them, 2 mutations. But there's a list of different MTHFR mutations that cause different things. I mean, there's a mutation that affects pregnancies and miscarriages. And, the one that Chase and I specifically both have affects your gut health and the way your body can process and get rid of toxins.
Okay.
So it's like your body's natural way of expelling toxins is disrupted. So your body holds on to those toxins, and it creates a load that causes, with Chase, I think some brain inflammation and, like that manifests as behaviors and delays.
Okay. Can they test that through blood, or how do they test that? Through blood?
Blood.
Okay. Yeah. Is that Hopewell Family Care, by the way?
We do see them, but we also, initially we saw Dr. Kalb at Cool Springs Family Medicine.
Okay.
We've seen them all in town.
Really?
Just about.
Yeah. So back to, can you kind of pick up at, I think we're about 15 months, maybe you started noticing signs. At what point, at what point were you like, okay, that's, maybe you just had, maybe that's just how he's acting today, but then you notice something again, maybe in a couple of days the next day, and then you start to pick up on some patterns and you're like, man, I don't know, maybe we should go take him to the doc. Like, is that how it panned out? Or is it like, no, this is, okay, something's going on here?
Well, yeah, I mean, every time we went, I mean, when they're little, you're getting shots, I feel like every month. I mean, maybe you don't know that, but like...
I really didn't.
I know. The schedule they have you on literally is like every 6 weeks you're getting a shot, it feels like.
Yeah.
So we're in the office all the time between the well visits, the shots, the ear infections, the rechecks. I mean, I feel like we were literally in the doctor every week. And it started to be like, he's doing this now, and everything I'm reading, this is like on the checklist for autism. And finally we went to the doctor that kind of validated what we were thinking. And at that point, he had kind of stopped responding to his name, or like if we would say, hey, Chase, he wouldn't look over at us or respond. So we took him to have his hearing tested, because, and at that point I was pregnant with Miles. I'll never forget sitting in this tiny booth with headphones on both of us and my huge belly and trying to hold him and make him cooperate. And it was a traumatic experience.
They had headphones on little Chase and you,
both of us, just so I could hear, I think they were just pinging his ear to see if he would turn in the direction of the sound. I don't even know what it was, but I remember leaving that office and there was a brochure at the checkout window for TEIS. And that's how we figured out to call and get resources through early intervention. And, they can't diagnose, but our new pediatrician got us on the list at Vanderbilt. We had to wait about 6 months for testing. And in the meantime, we went ahead and started with TEIS, getting speech and OT.
And how old is little Chase at this point?
2.
Okay. So then...
So he was 2.5 when we got the official diagnosis.
Okay.
Because I remember it was December of 2012.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was 2.5.
And where does an official diagnosis like that come from? Pediatrician?
A developmental pediatrician. So we had to come to Vanderbilt to get the diagnosis.
Oh, okay.
There's not one in Jackson that could test.
Gotcha.
And it is a long day.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Long day.
Were you making the trip from Jackson to Vandy on occasion?
We just did, I think, once or twice.
Okay.
But I mean, when we left, they handed over the diagnosis on the spot. And I'll never forget, I looked at Chase and said, we have to move. We can't stay in Jackson. There's no resources. There's not even an ABA therapist within 30 minutes or an hour of Jackson. We ended up staying for a little while because he was on a wait list. I mean, we didn't know right away about the Brown Center, but we started doing our research and found it and felt like it was the best fit for him.
Little Chase was on the wait list for the Brown Center?
He was.
Or what was the wait list? It was the Brown Center. And that was
and for Vanderbilt. I mean, it's like everything at that point, like the resources available were so much slimmer than they are now. I mean, there was not a whole lot of therapy options, even in Nashville. And everything was so small and it's private pay. So,
Yeah. So then, when did you move to Nashville, and how were his signs like in those early years? Like how did it from like 15 months to 2 years, did it sort of come on pretty quick and then kind of stabilize? Or is it something that would get progressively worse or would bump around, in the kind of the following years then?
So I had Miles in April of 2012. He was diagnosed in December of 2012. So basically the first 6 months of Miles's life, I don't really remember anything.
Oh, wow.
We were dealing with, just all the behaviors that were ever evolving with Chase, and then also having a newborn. It's really hard to say. Like a lot of that's fuzzy.
I see.
Super
intense. I can't imagine.
I know.
I can't imagine. My goodness, bringing a kid into the world is super intense and hard enough.
Well, and we were terrified of like, is this going to happen to Miles too? But like, we had no connection to the vaccines at that point. Like, we didn't really put 2 and 2 together as far as that's concerned until well after we had been in Nashville.
Oh, okay.
And the moms that we met at the Brown Center, a couple of them were doing some alternative things and started introducing us to different doctors and different thought processes on like ways that you can help kids with their symptoms and behaviors and that kind of thing.
If they had autism?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not so much like alternative stuff for Miles and...
Right. More for like kids with autism and how to help with behaviors and stimming and aggression and sleepless nights and that kind of thing.
What were some of those things that they were helping with?
Well, I mean, at that point, he was super hyper, like a very short attention span, couldn't sit and do much work at all. He flapped a lot.
Just like with his hands?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And would jump up and down, just stimming and yelling and not necessarily yelling like mad, but just like vocal. He had a lot of vocal stimming. It kind of reminds me of on Dumb and Dumber when they're like, you want to hear the most annoying sound in the world? It's like that.
Now, when you say stemming, what are you referring to? I don't know.
Well, so like the flapping is a form of stemming, or he would hold toys or anything. I mean, he still does this sometimes, he'll hold something up and kind of look at it out of the corner of his eye.
Yeah.
And at the time he was spinning everything, like every piece of toy. He would get down and like get it in his face and just spin and stare.
But what is the stemming term? What is that referring to?
Self-stimulation. So it's just kind of, I guess the best way to describe it is like almost how people, like if you're sitting and rocking or if you're shaking your leg or tapping a pen, it's just sort of like a non-PC way of self-soothing in a way.
It's like that, but exaggerated.
Right.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. When did you get interested then in diet and lifestyle changes?
So when we were at the Brown Center, we met a few parents that were doing some different things. We were still seeing like a traditional pediatrician here, and I was still kind of questioning whether or not I felt like vaccines played a role. But we went for his 4-year checkup, and he got his second round of like MMR and whatever else they give. And he immediately, like within an hour, developed a rash and a fever. And then I started noticing like more exaggerated behaviors and some aggression and just overall like super irritable. And just like he was just an unhappy child at that point. Like he had always been happy-go-lucky, but he just sort of, it was like the light went out in his eyes.
Wow.
And at that point, I was like, there's no doubt in my mind that like we just did more damage.
Oh, wow.
And that was something that like was really hard to live with once we figured out kind of like what components we felt like played a role.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I definitely think there's some environmental issues that like can contribute to the overall load in your body of like inflammation. And then I think vaccines just kind of tipped the bucket for him.
So this is at 4 years old, and he got a second round of MMR and some other stuff.
4 or 5, I can't remember what year.
Okay.
That's right before kindergarten, so he was probably like 4.5.
Okay. So you did have a couple years there where you knew little Chase had autism, but you were still okay with vaccines?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't say okay. I just still trusted mainstream medical advice about what is best.
Sure. So were you keeping him on the recommended vaccine schedules from like 2 to 5?
Pretty much. But, you know, after 2, it kind of is like really spaced out. They don't get a whole lot.
Yeah.
And he really wasn't sick all that much, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nothing like, well, I say that. I don't. Actually, when we moved here, I feel like they were sick all the time. But it was like random fever viruses and I don't know. I don't know if it was just a change in atmosphere or like, you know, being exposed to school and kids and daycare and stuff.
So with the second MMR and him like showing those signs so soon, like an hour after, are you saying then that kind of behavior, that behavior stuck for years? Or are you just saying kind of there was a shift in him for a couple of weeks?
No, I mean, I think it stuck. I mean, he wasn't super, like the irritability, the fever, like that kind of thing was more short-lived. But I think at that point, it was an eye-opener for Chase and for me. And we were like, okay, yes, we had kind of always questioned it. And that like was the seal of like, okay, well, this is it. This is a major thing. Right.
And knowing that he has autism, because whoever is giving him these vaccines, obviously at this point, everyone's well aware this kid has autism, right?
Yes. But they don't believe that vaccines play any kind of role. And they don't know anything about gut health or any of the like, at the time it was like biomed.
Okay.
So like alternative testing or, you know, anytime I asked for any of that stuff, just because I'd like started researching different tests and different things about gut health and allergies and food sensitivities, you know, our pediatrician was like, well, I mean, we don't do that. So we started with an allergist, like a traditional allergist, and did like food allergy testing. But most all of that, I mean, it was fine because like he doesn't have a true allergy. It's a sensitivity.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a difference in an IgG and an IgE, right?
I'm not sure. What is that?
Well, it's just, I think.
The difference between an allergy and a sensitivity?
Right, yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Your pediatrician didn't do blood work to see about sensitivities or allergies? I thought they all did that.
No. Hopewell is like a unicorn.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
Yes.
Somehow, by the way, when do you start seeing Jamie at Hopewell?
Oh, man, I don't even know.
Okay. Because Mariana found her, I forget now too. I feel like it wasn't long after we moved to Nashville in 2014.
Well, y'all were so close to her out there.
We were,
she was a haul from, you know, from where we are now.
Yep. But anyhow, that's our exposure to pediatricians is basically her. And
well, a lot of the integrative doctors in Nashville are all very connected. I mean, they've all worked together at some point. So it's easy once you're in that circle to kind of get referrals to different ones. Like I had been seeing Danny Williamson for Hashimoto's, and she actually used to work under Dr. Kalb at Cool Springs Family Medicine. And somehow Jamie, I think, used to work there.
Okay.
So, I mean, they're all, you know, very familiar with each other and kind of on the same page as far as how they treat their patients and what they believe.
Fascinating. So what'd you do after that as far as vaccines? You just
stopped
not touch
turkey.
them since? Stopped cold turkey since? Okay.
Even Miles, I think he got all of his through age 2.
Okay.
And then we haven't done any.
So what is your thoughts on vaccines now? Like, if you had a really good friend that was just asking you for some advice, would you say, hey, between you and me, I wouldn't vaccinate at all? Or you say do some, but stretch them out? Or like what? I'm just curious what your take is.
I don't push no vaccines. I mean, I think everyone should have a choice. And I think everyone should do their research and be educated on, what's best for their family. Like my sister got pregnant. She has a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And when she was pregnant with the oldest, I just begged her. I was like, please research it. Like, do your due diligence. Like, don't take my word for it. But, there's a great book, The Vaccine Friendly Plan. And the doctor just lays out all the risks and the benefits of both. And he's not pro-vaccine and he's not anti-vaccine. He's just very like, educate yourself. Because, I do think they're fine for the majority of the population who don't have underlying genetic issues or other factors that could be detrimental. But, my sister, when the baby was born, she did the genetic testing and she did come back with an MTHFR mutation. So
for her and her husband?
The baby.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So they chose to do a delayed schedule and they've worked with Jamie on how to do that and different ways that if you do vaccinate, how to find a clean one that doesn't have some of the preservatives like aluminum and different things that can be, detrimental and inflammatory and that kind of thing. And so they've done that. And then there's like a protocol for how to help your body detox after the vaccine.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, Jamie has a great protocol for that.
Okay. It's such a big charged topic.
I know.
Vaccines.
And people get so heated over it.
People get super heated about it. And
because I think they think people are just making this rash decision to buck the system. And it has nothing to do with that. It's more of just, what you're putting into your body. And I don't think people really know what the ingredients in these vaccines are.
I agree with that. I do think it's probably a fair assessment to, I don't know. This is tough. Okay, let me say this. Based on my personal experience, most of the people that are just kind of like, yeah, of course you would vaccinate, the non-vaccination people are kind of nut jobs, crunchy, all into, basically hippies. And the people that are just very pro-vaccinate tend to be more kind of following the guidelines of mainstream medicine.
Right.
And the people that question vaccines tend to be more interested in integrative health and holistic care and things like that.
I don't think they can coexist.
Really?
I just don't see how someone that is 100% on board with CDC guidelines can think an alternative lifestyle or alternative health.
Yeah.
Because it's like oil and water almost.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, we don't have to look any further than the food pyramid to question whether we should just take is that the CDC? I don't think it is. The
FDA.
Yeah, the FDA. I mean, there was at one point the food pyramid was messed up and it was obvious and they've changed it now. But where did the catalyst for change came from? It came from the people that were more interested in holistic health and alternative, like those types of things, healthy lifestyle as opposed to medication, those types of things. And and finally the public got behind it enough. And then more research came out and they changed what they suggest that you eat. But there was a point in time where what the government is saying, this is a good diet, was not a good diet. And it never was. It wasn't back then and it's not now, So I think for those that, would say we feel safe just kind of following the government's guidelines and these types of things, man, I wouldn't be so sure. On the other hand, I don't think they're trying to do a bad job.
No, I think it's the general population is probably fine. Like I said, I just think, it's not a one size fits all like option.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a very contentious, very contentious thing. But the other thing to consider is that vaccines were not what they were in the 80s. So I was born in 84. I'm pretty sure I just got vaccinated like any other newborn
it was probably
back
like 10
in the day.
Total.
Probably. Yeah, Maybe. It was much less than it is now.
It's probably triple that now.
Yeah. It's gotten, there's a lot more. The dosages are a lot higher. But the MMR does seem to come up maybe the most frequently. It has to be one of the most frequent ones that comes up as it relates to generating negative long-term health conditions in kids.
I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's the difference in ingredients or if it's because there's 3 lumped in one. Mm-hmm. They also, when they give MMR, there's other shots that usually are given in conjunction with it, I think. I haven't looked at the like shot schedule in a while, so I am not familiar, but
it's measles, mumps, and rubella. And if you get the MMR vaccine according to schedule and everything, just as recommended, your chance of getting measles goes away by like 97%. Like it's 97% successful in making measles go away. For mumps, it's like 88% success rate with not getting mumps later. And then rubella, I think, is back up to like 95 or something. The thing to consider with that is like with any goal that you have in mind, and this is why I don't set goals quite like I used to, because let's say your goal is to weigh, in my case, pick a weight. So let's just say 175 pounds. So if my goal is to weigh 175 pounds, well, you can accomplish that goal, but then you're going to have a lot of other things that might go out of whack. And I think goals are still great. So set goals, but I like to think in terms of like habits or processes instead of goals. I think it's the same thing with MMR. Like those stats are true. If you get MMR, sure, I'm sure it's probably successful at those things, and maybe everyone still should. I don't know. I don't know enough to have a strong opinion here. But that's only a part of like the bigger story. Like, I mean, what good, like, all right, great. So we're not going to get measles, mumps, rubella, but what else might go wrong, depending on what our genetics are. And so I think we need to consider like the whole person.
Right.
While measles, mumps, and rubella is a very bad thing to get any of them, there's also a lot of other things that can go wrong.
Right.
So, vaccinations. Anything else you wanted to say kind of on that or how you look at it now? You still chose to get Miles vaccinated with some, correct?
Right. At the time, I think he was in Jackson until he was about 6 or 9 months old. And then we moved here and, we were still seeing a normal like pediatrician. Still weren't really sure what our thoughts and beliefs were about the correlation. So we just did, what we thought we were supposed to do and what the responsible thing was. But, we also learned in that time frame, like one of the first things that most of the parents that we met with kids on the spectrum that were doing alternative routes, it was like cut out gluten, cut out dairy casein. So like we started going down that path of diet changes, and that's kind of where it led us to alternative lifestyles of eating and supplements and just, checking different labs that typical doctors don't check.
And was little Chase about 4 or 5 years old when you started doing this too? Okay. So what sort of diet or lifestyle or like, what did you discover over this time? Like, what did you get into? How did you guys' lifestyle change then with that information?
Initially we started off with just him and we cut out gluten and we cut out dairy. We had tried this back in Jackson, before we moved, because we had heard like, I think Chase's grandmother and some other people had said, we've seen some success with this, but like the resources in the grocery stores, like they had nothing. And the options for gluten-free food back then was a fraction of what it is now.
Right.
And we were trying to make stuff homemade, but like that was another thing. Like his food choices were so limited, and it was basically just starchy carbs, chips, donuts, chicken fingers, like grilled cheese, like all the bad things. And it was really hard to find replacements for those that were gluten and dairy free, because basically that's all he ate.
I see.
When we moved to Nashville, also I think like gluten free was not a popular trend back then. So it's grown and the options have grown. But we started with just like cutting out gluten and dairy. We started over here a couple years later. And we immediately, now I wouldn't say immediately, it takes a while to get out of your system. But once we stuck with it, and probably like 6 to 8 weeks in, we started noticing just he was overall calmer and less stimming, less irritability. He started sleeping through the night. Like he didn't sleep. He stopped sleeping through the night. Probably around like 18 months or 2. Like he would just wake up in the middle of the night and just be hysterically laughing at like nothing. Or we ended up moving him out of his crib before he was even 2, because he would hold onto the rail and jump so hard that I thought the springs were going to fall out of his crib.
No way.
I mean, he would just wake up and jump in his crib for hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, it was like he was the best sleeper as a baby. And then it was like we didn't sleep for years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you saw a significant change 6 or 8 weeks in from diet alone.
It progressively got, like, behaviors got better and better and better, like the longer we stuck with it. And then we met, or didn't meet, but like a good friend introduced me to this. I'm trying to think what her title is. She's a PhD, like research scientist, I guess. But she has a daughter on the spectrum, and she researched the role of glutamate in brain inflammation and autism, and just how limiting processed foods and eating a whole foods diet and not eating anything with like preservatives can really bring down the load of inflammation in the brain and neurotoxins and that kind of thing.
Interesting.
That's kind of like the beginning of where it all started. It was mostly just all diet related.
So that's the science behind eating better, is because gluten or some of those things would go in the gut, cause inflammation, and actually inflame the brain or send weird signals to the brain, or what happens?
Neurotoxins, yeah. I mean, a lot of the proteins in the food just don't get broken down the same way. And then, you've heard the term leaky gut. So it's like the wall of the gut is not like this. It's like this. So bigger proteins can get through.
Yes.
They're not broken down. They can go into the brain and they can cause inflammation. All the preservatives, just the junk that's in food now is so toxic to the brain, and just, we aren't perfect by any means. We still eat some processed foods. We try to I'm very conscious of the labels and of reading what I'm buying, and I try to buy things with as limited amount of ingredients as possible if it is packaged. But
do you guys follow a particular diet, or you just try to eat whole foods? Or
mostly it's just whole foods and as clean of options as we can.
Okay. And does little Chase still eat what you guys eat, or does
for the most part? I mean, we avoid gluten. Miles and Big Chase eat it. They don't have a problem eating it. They don't have a reaction. I have autoimmune issues, so I don't eat it unless we're like eating out. I have some enzymes and stuff, but we stick to a pretty clean diet when we can.
Did you ever try the carnivore diet?
Keto?
No, carnivore. Just meat.
No.
You might want to test it for yourself. If you mentioned you have some autoimmune issues. We were just talking about this the other day. So I tried it for 7 days. I forget when that was. It wasn't 2019. It was the end of 2018. Yeah. So the carnivore diet is meat and eggs And I feel like some would say cheese is okay too, but the hardcore people just meat and eggs. And yeah, that's all I ate for 7 days.
I don't know if I can do that.
I felt great. I was tired of steak, to be honest, but I may have a gluten sensitivity. I don't know. I probably do, because if I eat that stuff, I don't feel very good.
Yeah.
I feel sick.
Yeah.
Just feel bloated, feel gross.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I mean, I know some people that have been on the carnivore diet for years, but
that would get expensive.
It would get expensive,
especially now.
Yeah, for sure. And it does seem like to do it long term, you'd want to use it for a very specific reason. Like I can't think like the majority of people. I can't think anyone should just eat meat, for a long period of time. So
what is it for? Like, what does it benefit?
Autoimmune diseases, a lot of times. Yeah. And so you can, I mean, some people do it as a lifestyle and they eat that way for years and years. Then I had a friend, this was the reason I tried it, was because he and his wife tried it for, they, in my opinion, they went relatively hardcore. Like they did it for a few months and it helped them. It helped them a lot. Help with allergies. It helped with, it does.
I would assume it would have to be like very clean meat, right? Like organic grass fed.
Yeah. You want to get, if possible, organic grass fed. You don't want to just be getting anything. And processed meat wouldn't be great either. But if you get clean meat, and if you do have a leaky gut or some of those things, supposedly it can help with that. So,
interesting.
Yeah, I kind of liked it, honestly. I felt great when I was on it, but it was expensive.
Would love that. He loves meat.
Well, you could try. I mean, you could try it. It can't hurt anything.
Maybe once our economy is back normal.
Yeah, give him plenty of water to go with it. But the great thing is he can eat as much as he wants. Yeah. He doesn't have to restrict anything. So yeah. Back to then, did you make any lifestyle changes? So diet. How about just in general? Like, I mean, you guys literally moved to Nashville for this reason. Did you change anything else lifestyle related? I mean, I guess on one level, it just affects everything that you do.
Right. I mean, we...
My producer's looking on the table over there. What are you doing, buddy?
He's getting tired of hearing about all this. You're getting all the ins and outs of Chase.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're going to know more about him than anyone else, probably. We started looking at like household products and personal products like toothpaste and shampoos and cleaners. And, we started, I think one of the first changes we made was like getting into essential oils, using those to treat different things like fevers and allergies or bug bites. And, we just tried to stop using some of the more traditional, like over the counter things.
Yeah.
And oh gosh, it's just spiraled since then. I feel like we try to buy anything and everything clean we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah.
Sticking with things that are grown or that come from the earth, you can't go wrong. You know what I mean? Like that's just, it's like if you're not sure what to do, like just go natural.
I know.
Like, I think a lot about, I don't know why this is, it's kind of weird, but when it comes to like diet and health and lifestyle, I think back to like the Native American days. Like what would they do? Like even like as it relates to just like mental health and things. Like think of some of those warriors. You go to them and say, "Hey, sit in your teepee, all day and play this iPad." Like you would get a different, and do that for like a week. The guy walking out of that teepee would be a lot different than the guy going in.
Yeah.
Like everything would change, like, so just the benefit of like getting out in the fresh air and experiencing things and going on that extra hike or
nature and sunshine.
Yeah. And move your body. Like your body is meant to be moved around, like don't be surprised if you have a very sedentary, like sitting around and kind of that lifestyle. Like, don't be surprised if then you need to drink a lot of coffee to, like, you're tired a lot because you just ate a whole ton of pasta. Now your body's crashing. Now you're drinking a lot of coffee.
Your brain's overloaded with lights and
colors.
I
mean, it's like we've grown accustomed in 2020. We've grown accustomed to this Western American lifestyle, but most of it's not healthy at all.
No,
like you have to choose to be different if you want a healthy lifestyle now, and it wasn't always that way.
Yeah, and people almost look at you like you're a weirdo when you are doing the different things.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh.
What about other inputs that you've tried with little Chase or remedies or
a lot? So one thing with autism, a lot of kids have some comorbid underlying like infections or viruses. Chase and I both had, maybe still have, Lyme disease, which I'm not sure if
Chase?
Little.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure if I passed it on to him or if he contracted it. I mean, he did get some tick bites when we moved here, but I feel like the fact that I have it too, I hadn't had a tick bite in a long time. So I know it can be passed down. It's very common to be passed down to the firstborn. I mean, it's kind of almost like your firstborn gets the whole viral load, just like everything dumps from the mom.
Right. But I didn't know Lyme disease could be passed from mother to child at all.
Mm-hmm. It can be a congenital
just
disease.
From coming from your womb or from breastfeeding?
From the womb.
I didn't know that.
I'm not really sure how, but we traveled to Philadelphia and saw a doctor up there who treats through muscle testing. At that point, like, we had done a lot of lab work on Chase. We'd poked and prodded. We had done blood work that showed he was Lyme positive. It wasn't super definitive on the strains and the co-infections, and that was going to be more testing. And I was just like, I can't keep pulling blood out of him and testing and testing and testing. So we found this doctor in Philadelphia who is a chiropractor, but he's a Klinghardt trained Lyme doctor. Dietrich Klinghardt is kind of a world-renowned Lyme doctor. He's really hard to get into, but this doctor we saw, Dr. Schwartz, was trained under him. So we felt, we had a couple of friends in the autism world that had seen him and had good results. So we both got treated with him. He used an herbal protocol, which I also was drawn to because it was not antibiotic treatment. So we did the herbal protocol for a couple years. And I mean, I feel significantly better. I think it helped Chase some too. It's hard to say. I mean, he still has some other underlying infections that we're still dealing with. But we did that. We've done homeopathy. We still use herbal protocols for viruses. Like if he's gotten strep throat, we've used herbal stuff instead of antibiotics if we can. I mean, he had a bout of sickness. I guess it was February of 2018 that lasted a pretty long time. And we ended up having to do some antibiotics over that course. But he was really, really sick. It ended up being Epstein-Barr virus or mono. So we ended up doing another homeopathic protocol for that once we figured out what it was. And well, to back up, we did stem cell transplant. We went to Panama and did that.
Oh, fascinating.
And I think, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask more about that. But before I forget, what is homeopathy?
How do you explain homeopathy? Like, when babies, they used to have like teething tablets that you could dissolve. But then it's like, I don't really know how to explain it. They're in the little blue vials at Whole Foods, and they have like.
So it's a medicine, or is it a type
natural.
of? Okay,
it's natural. Gosh, I should know how to explain this by now. But
okay, so it's something that you're going to ingest or take into your body.
It's a little white pellet, and it's the whole concept is like cures like. So.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So like if. I'm trying to think.
So it's almost like microdosing. It's almost like a version of a vaccine. Like if give them a little bit of what they have and that. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
But it's in a natural form.
Yeah, I see.
So they take things from nature and dilute it into these little pellets.
Okay.
We worked with a homeopath, and we still do for a long time.
Okay.
And they kind of work on healing, and it's energy work. So it works on vibrations on a cellular level. So like vibrations from plants that kind of can help vibrations of the body on a cellular level.
Okay.
I mean, it gets really confusing and complicated. I can read it and understand it. I cannot regurgitate it to where it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
back to stem cell. You said you did stem cells?
We did. We researched this for a long time. There was a trial at Duke. It's still going on. And at the time, all of our friends from the Brown Center applied. We applied. They're doing a clinical trial on embryonic stem cells, fetal stem cells. I think it's called mesenchymal stem cells. And they're putting them in the body and just letting them, a lot of kids have seen like phenomenal results in just healing like underlying issues and inflammation and that kind of thing.
So you guys applied.
We applied. Everyone I knew applied. Everyone I knew got in except for us. And it was heartbreaking. It was devastating.
I thought you said you did get in.
We did not get into Duke. So
okay.
So Duke has been doing this trial for, gosh, I don't even know how long now. It's been several years. It's still ongoing, and they're trying to get it FDA approved, but they're basing their trial off of a clinic in Panama that's doing the same thing. And you can go to Panama. Anyone can go. You've got to get approved, but like you pay. The clinical trial was free, so we were obviously like hoping we could do that, and we didn't get in. And we tried a couple different times, and it never panned out. So we waited and we prayed about it, and we went back and forth, and eventually, I don't know what. We just decided like, okay, we're in a place where we raised the money to do it, so let's give it a shot. And I think Big Chase, he really, really, like that was one thing. He gets behind anything that I put out there. I mean, I do the bulk of the research. I've got the time, and I'm always throwing ideas out. And this is one of those things that he just like really, really latched onto and wanted to try.
Oh, really? Okay.
And, I didn't see any harm in it. And I had read, that it's better to have some of the underlying conditions take like Lyme or any kind of viral load or anything like that. It's better to have those things under control before doing it. And I kind of felt like we had tried to get all that under control. So we did it. I think, at first we didn't see anything. We did that in November of 2018. No, 2017. Hold on. It's all running together. Was it before
you said he got real sick in February of 18? Was it before that? Okay.
2017 we went. Gosh, it feels like it was yesterday we went, and that's hard to believe.
Well, it basically was. Time's going so fast now.
So
after 25, everything's just a white blur.
I know. I'm like, So yeah, we did that in November, and then didn't really see a whole lot. But they say that they can live in your body for up to a year, and they just kind of like gradually take time to, work. But then he started getting really sick in February of 2018. So we didn't really know what was happening, and it kept going on. He started with strep, and then it was flu, and it was like back-to-back things. And looking back, I think it was like his immune system doing a 180, and all these things that have been suppressed. Because that was another thing. After he got his last vaccine, he like never got sick again. It was like his immune system just stopped and went into like autoimmune mode. And he never got sick. He never hardly had a fever. He hardly had a runny nose. Like he just was not sick. Wow. And now he was like getting and it was like all these things that were just like had been suppressed were coming up. And
wow.
So even on labs, like he initially tested positive for strep and flu. So we did the antibiotics, and he still kept being sick and like fever and like lethargic and couldn't get off the couch. We kept going back to the emergency room. They were running all these labs. They couldn't figure out what was wrong. his mono labs were fine. But then we finally called in a friend, like a really close family friend who does muscle testing. And she was able to determine that it was in fact Epstein-Barr virus, but it wasn't an acute mono infection. It was more of a chronic EBV that was coming up. So that's when we tried the homeopathic protocol. And it was like days within starting that protocol that he turned a corner.
Really?
And had been like 2 months of him like laying on the couch. He lost like 12 to 15 pounds. I mean, he was a skeleton. It was so scary.
Oh, wow. And he's, at this point, what is he, 6, 7 years old?
7.
Okay.
Yeah.
So back to the stem cells.
Mm-hmm.
So you went to Panama.
We did. The country.
Yep. And you had to pay for this out of pocket or insurance out of pocket?
It's like $23,000.
Really? That's what I was going to ask, is how much it was.
Yep.
And do you got to go back down there a few times, or is it one trip and you're done?
So it was a week.
Okay.
We went down. They did some like pre-lab work the first day, and then it was like 3 or 4 days of injections, 1 day of follow-up, and then you go home.
And what is it? What are these injections?
Mesenchymal stem cells from embryos or cord blood. Sorry, cord blood.
Okay. From
healthy pregnancies. So they're very careful to say, like, we do not take aborted placentas or stem cells or fetuses. Like they use cord blood and placenta from healthy pregnancies.
Do you say cord blood?
Mm-hmm.
Like umbilical cord blood?
Umbilical cord blood.
So they get this blood from the umbilical cord of a pregnant mother?
Mm-hmm.
And
after they've given birth.
Okay. I don't know anything about this.
Oh, really?
So, no, I don't. So they're after healthy stem cells to then put into someone who may have some unhealthy stem cells?
So, I mean, there's a lot of different stem cell treatments out there. They can take adipose stem cells from like fat tissue, or they can take like stem cells from bone marrow. But cord blood stem cells are like the most pure, like best working stem cells because they have not been assigned to anything. So they're just like pure, unassigned stem cells. So they don't even have like a blood type. You don't have to be a blood match.
Oh, fascinating.
And they do stem cell transplants for like cancer patients and different things like that. Or like they inject them into joints for athletes and stuff like that. So this is basically just like he was getting injections just into his arm intravenously. And the goal is that they go wherever the body needs them, wherever the most inflammation is, they go and kind of replenish and take over the unhealthy cells.
Oh, fascinating. That's similar to, I was watching a documentary, I think it was, or maybe it was a news article, but where they were moving stem cells from a healthy person into people that had this awful skin disease. I forget what it was called, but basically your skin would just feel like you were on fire everywhere. Just awful. And much the same. Yeah, they'd have it going into the arm. It'd be like hooked up to the IVs, but it had something to do with stem cells or DNA, and the new DNA would come in and basically just start like healing all of the DNA that was just messed up just a little bit. It's so intricate and fascinating. It's way above my head. But there was like these people with the skin disease would have DNAs that would just sort of mutate a little bit, and then they'd introduce this new DNA, and it would like heal. Like these people were just like getting healed. I
mean, there's some miraculous stories if you start looking.
With autism?
Yeah, I mean, just in another element. I mean, we have another good family friend from Jackson who went to Panama. He's an older gentleman, like our parents' age, and he just was having like degenerative joint pain, and he went and he ended up staying for 2 rounds of treatment and has never felt better in his life. I mean, It's taken away like all of his joint pain and physical ailments.
You mentioned specifically that it didn't come from like aborted babies or anything like that. Is that because some stem cell procedures do come from aborted babies or something?
I just think there's always like a taboo, like, I mean, obviously, like they have standards that they want to uphold, and don't want to support that. So, I mean, I'm just guessing. I don't know that for sure, but
yeah,
I know they make a point to say that they do test where they come from, and that they make a point to say that they are from healthy deliveries.
I see. So did you see a change in Chase then? I mean, obviously he got sick, but did you see an improvement overall?
Overall now, I mean, I think his body responds to illnesses in a more typical way. You know, he'll get a fever, or he'll, you know, like he didn't sweat. He didn't like, he never, like his body was not getting rid of toxins. Like, you know, you sweat to get stuff out, and he didn't sweat for a long time.
Wow.
Just different things like that.
So you guys are glad you did that though?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think we have a peace knowing that like it's one more thing we tried.
Right.
Just to make sure we're covering all our bases.
Yep. What do you guys do to I guess stay sane? Because this seems like it's like an everyday, all day type of thing. You know, like it's so. I mean, just as a parent, you know, you want the best for your kids, and if a kid has a special circumstance or need, or even if a kid is sick, I mean, you know, you're like, it's all hands on deck.
Yeah.
So how do you and Big Chase, like, is this just something that's kind of you've incorporated into your lifestyle, or is there specific things you do to handle the extra responsibility that other parents wouldn't have?
I think it's definitely morphed over the years. You know, early on it was really hard. We prayed a lot. We still do, obviously, but it doesn't feel as desperate. And you know, there was a lot of worry in the beginning about what his future was going to look like. And, you know, I think we focused a lot on making him better. Not that we didn't accept him for who he was, but it was just like this desperate constant search for answers and ways to like fix the autism. And now I don't want to say that we've accepted it, because we're always trying to make his quality of life better, and we always want the best for his future. But I think we've kind of just settled into this routine, and we take it day by day, and we try not to stress about his future and just put our hope in, you know, the fact that God has a plan for him that's way, way bigger than anything we can imagine.
Yeah.
And that took a while to get there, because, you know, you think about your kids and like what they're going to be and like how they're going to survive without you. And that's really daunting and scary for us if we think about for him right now.
Sure.
So we just try not to focus on that, and just take it day by day. And we've really started to, I think, focus on, I think I mentioned this earlier, just like our own mental health, because it takes a toll, you know, the anxiety. I think a lot of my own health issues were stress related, 100%, of just dealing with this day in and day out, and letting that stress and anxiety take over. Even when I felt like I had it together, I think underlying like anxiety was just always there eating at me. And
right. Yeah, I can imagine.
It totally causes inflammation too. And I think the more it's funny, like the past probably year, we've started to kind of recognize how much our energy affects him. And the more at peace we are and the more level we are, the better he is. And as soon as, like, especially me, I feel like we're so connected, the more amped up I get or the more anxious I get, it plays out in his behavior. And we're like, it's just crazy to see the connection of like the emotions and how tied to they are.
Yes. It's what I think, what what I noticed with this virus going around is, I guess on one level, people are kind of stressed about the virus and there's uncertainty and everything. But I'm seeing way more people out walking. I'm seeing the earth to me feels more still. Mm-hmm. Like there's not much traffic out. People are mostly at home. They're going on walks because they're tired of being in the house. There's just more of I feel like it's kind of shifted from like work to being just a little bit. Like people are out in the communities and things.
Break.
Yeah, it kind of feels like things are at rest just a little bit more.
I think we were craving that really bad too. Like our pace of life is just go, go, go. And it just feels like you can't come up for air some days, a lot of days.
Yes.
I mean, between school and Miles' sports and his social life and Chase and therapy and, work and all and then trying to cram me time in. It's just, I don't know. We were craving a slower pace in a bad way.
Yeah, I think there's a lesson in here, because we're all so busy like chasing a lifestyle or chasing a dream or chasing a career or whatever it is. And days bleed into weeks, which bleed into months, and then it's years, and like a chunk of your life goes by. And this just makes us realize that a lot of that stuff is pretty, it's a lot more fragile than we thought. Like we like to build our lives in a certain way to protect ourselves from certain things. And man, that lifestyle can actually go away pretty dang quick. I mean, this is the first time in my life that I've seen something that's made everyone basically quit what they were doing, at least in the way that they were doing it, and change it up.
Yeah.
It's not all bad.
And it's interesting to see the people, there's like the group that focus on the media and the news and the virus and the negative. And then there's the people that just like shut that out and focus on like, how is this affecting us in a positive way?
Right. Yep.
And I'm like drawn to that because I feel like there's a lot of lessons to learn in this.
Yeah. I totally agree. Well, I was reading an article somewhere that was mentioning that there's deer walking the roads in Japan, that the sky is clearing up over China. And I mean, it stands to reason.
Yeah.
In other words, the Earth's getting a little bit of a break right now.
Right.
Which could be
a bad thing.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing at all. What about how can friends support people with kids with autism or even other special needs? Like, how can we help,
Oh, y'all are sweet. I mean, I feel like Marianne you're great too, but like when y'all are gone working, like, or Chase is gone working, she's always great to say, bring Chase and I'll watch him and give y'all a break. Or, y'all have both done that a few times. And it's like, we have like our community, our neighborhood is like one of the best support systems we have, because I know like there's a dozen people I could call at the drop of a hat that know Chase, that know how he is, they accept him for who he is. And if I was in a bind, I could call any of these people and like they could help. And they do, and they have. And that I think is rare to have such a close-knit community of friends in such a close proximity that, and I think the school being right there definitely helps because they're all there together and, people know him. But I just think, like just accepting him for who he is and knowing that we have people we can call that can just help out and that include him, and that just means like the world.
Yeah. Do you like when other adults, like your friends, treat him as normal as possible and
totally? And
converse
I think he
with him
appreciates
and
it too.
Like,
even though he's nonverbal and he doesn't talk, he understands everything. He cognitively, like, I'll explain things to him and I know he understands.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, he can understand way more than he can express.
Okay. Yeah. Because
and even if he acts like he's not paying attention or if he's not listening or he's kind of aloof, like, it is still registering.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've seen him that doesn't surprise me because I've seen him smile at things and, you can tell.
Yeah.
And don't you think do you think sometimes he doesn't let on purpose? I mean, like,
yes.
you know what I mean? Like
he holds out for sure.
Right,
he knows how to work it.
Exactly.
And the older he gets, I'm noticing more and more like these sneaky little smirks and like, he like will laugh at Miles when he gets in trouble or,
oh, really?
He'll like run. If I'm like, okay, Chase, like you need to go get in the bath. He'll like run and hide.
Okay.
And there's like this little bit of defiant, like he's always been such a, well, I shouldn't say always, but I would say like the last 3 or 4 years, like he's been very compliant. Like his behavior is like, I mean, he's like the ideal special ed student. I feel like because he doesn't have a ton of behavior issues. Like he will sit and do his tasks. I mean, he still will jump up and run around or do his thing, but like overall, he's a pretty easy kid. But I'm noticing more and more like there's these little bits of defiance and testing boundaries, and I kind of love it because I'm like,
that's great. It's personality. Yeah. That's like, wonderful.
I don't want him to be a little robot just doing everything he's told to do.
Yeah. So. Yeah. But he goes on hikes and keeps up with you guys.
Oh yeah.
Like his mobile skills and
physical stuff out.
Yeah. That's so great.
Gross motor has always been his strong suit.
Okay.
I mean, he can climb anything.
Okay. Yeah. What, and by the way, April, you mentioned is Autism Awareness Month?
It is.
Yeah. Are you involved with any sort of events or anything like that goes on? Okay. I assume they have.
I don't have the bandwidth.
Right. But I assume that exists, right? Like
it does. Autism Speaks is a big one. There's Talk About Curing Autism.
Okay.
There's a bunch of them out there.
Yep.
I've kind of shut that part out. Like Facebook used to be our lifeline, and it was like where we got all of our support. And there's so many groups of like, a group for Lyme and a group for these types of supplements or this protocol or people in Tennessee. And I've met some amazing people through those groups, but
I see.
I've just, priorities have shifted and the research, I'm just not there anymore.
Sure.
And I've gotten off Facebook. So
sure. Well, I think that stands to total reason. And I'm sure there's a lot of benefits in that.
Yeah.
What about, you texted my wife and I earlier today. It was a meditation kind of playlist, I guess it looked like. Do you meditate a lot?
So it's a new thing for me.
Okay.
It kind of started at the end of last year and the beginning of this year. It was something I wanted to personally focus on more, was just self-awareness and controlling my own feelings and emotions and recognizing my response to different different stimuluses or different experiences and how they impact me. And, I'm not like a big resolution setter anyway, but I was like, I want to pick a word for the year and focus on that instead of like a goal. So I picked the word renewal, and I don't really even know why, but then I started finding, it was just like it came to me. It was like all these different outlets, like through social media or friends or articles or whatever. I just kept coming across different forms of meditation or different resources. And it just really intrigued me. And so I started looking into it. I did this 21-day manifest challenge at the beginning of the year.
What was that?
It was just a manifesting challenge. It was like pick a goal or something that you really want to happen this year. And then it was like kind of a step-by-step guide of teaching you how to manifest and how to change your thought processes. And actually the girl in that, Gabby Bernstein, she led the manifesting challenge. And I just really like her meditations.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really great. It was Gabby Bernstein, Bernstein, I think Gabby Bernstein. People can Google it.
She's written several books. She was on Good Morning America earlier this week.
Yeah, she must be pretty famous. She has 700,000 Instagram followers, I noticed. But I actually really liked it.
Yeah.
I don't meditate on a daily basis. I don't meditate that often, but I have I have meditated a few times that made a significant difference.
Yes. I'm not good at silent meditation where there's just music playing. My mind wanders way too much. Maybe that's the point. I like the short one. Like I can't do a 30-minute meditation. I just don't have the attention span. Or the time really. But I like those little short ones. Like I had read some articles and read some news and stuff about coronavirus, and it got me all worked up and anxious. I think I sent you that other one too.
Yeah.
And after I read it, I was super nervous or just feeling anxious and uptight. And I was like, I think I just need to shift my focus and thoughts, and it helps.
Yeah.
I don't do it regularly either, but
yeah. The most powerful meditation experience that I had was last summer. Actually, it was in November with a counselor, and with everything going on last year, I went to a counselor maybe, 3, 4, 5 times. Super helpful. And there's only one other season in life that I went as well for, again, about half a dozen times. Very helpful. And I believe I was going every other week. And this one time, sometimes you have it scheduled, and so you're driving there and you're like, what am I even doing? Like, what? I don't know what I want to talk about today. I don't know what we should get into.
Yeah.
I don't know. Should I call this off? Like, I don't know. Am I going to waste the time today? It was like, and my mind was busy. And it was one of those days. And he was like, well, what do you want to get into? And so I was like, man, I don't really know. And he's like, well, we could do either just a guided meditation or just kind of a quiet meditation. So I was like, well, let's do a guided meditation. It was super powerful. And so but it's a biblical thing. Like the quieting our thoughts, meditating. I mean, Scripture talks about it. So,
and I think there
really
can be
helpful.
some misconceptions about what meditation looks like. I think early on, or like, I didn't used to know anything about it, and I just assumed it was maybe a non-spiritual experience. But I think it's what you make it, and definitely like the source of where it's coming from,
right?
What you're listening to, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, thanks for being on. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Anything else related to your story or autism that you wanted to cover?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I feel like I feel like we were all over the place, and I'm sure I left out bits and pieces of it. But I mean, I've tried to document it along the way. I haven't done a great job, but I feel like I pray daily that God uses this journey for us to help someone else, because we felt so lost in the beginning. And like we had no one to turn to for help or guidance or advice or really anything, because it just, we didn't know anyone that had been through this. So, I am an open book, and I'm always willing to talk through it and like hold no judgment if people do things differently than we've done. But I'm happy to share our journey and kind of what's worked for us and what hadn't. I mean, we've tried a lot of things that haven't worked.
Okay.
I would say overall diet and lifestyle changes have been the number one thing. He's on a lot of supplements, and we've done a ton of alternative things that I didn't even get into, like saunas and foot baths and just random stuff. So
really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I should make a list.
Like,
sometime.
do you consistently go to saunas or?
No, I mean, I would love to have one in our house, an infrared sauna.
Yeah.
If we ever remodel, it's definitely in the budget.
Really? What about a foot bath? What's the science behind that?
Ionic foot bath. It's supposed to help with detox.
Okay, I can see that. Apparently you have nerves in your feet that just go to like every parts of your body.
Yeah, I mean, you know how like even they say if you're sick, like to put like onion poultice on your chest or on your feet because it pulls it out.
Yep.
So.
Well, this is going to super gross everyone out because it grossed me out. But my sister sent us a text. I don't know. I think it was when we were at the beach. So like 3 weeks ago. And one of her kids was sick, and she peeled a potato. And it was like probably like a 1/4 inch thick potato, and put it in his socks and he slept with the potato chunk on the bottom of his feet. And that thing it looked like it had mold on it the next morning, to be honest. And she had a potato that she had on her feet that same night. Her feet or someone else's feet that was not sick. Pretty clean potato.
That's crazy.
Crazy. Like the picture, I don't really have a stomach for some of that. Like it kind of grosses me out. But just looking at that picture, like it was a side by side. This pulled, something from this sick kid, and you can see all the coloring and discoloring and mold. I don't know what he had, actually. I don't know what was going on. Yeah, I don't think it was a cold or fever or something like that. But yeah, there was pulling toxins out of the body for sure. What about, did you ever look into, now I forget what it's called, but you stand in this freeze tank.
Oh, cryotherapy?
Cryotherapy.
We have not done that.
Okay. Did you personally ever do a float tank?
Yes, and I got a horrible ear infection from it.
Did you not put the wax in the ears?
I guess I didn't have it in there good. I don't know. I get a little freaked out. It reminded me of a tanning bed back in the day where you pull the thing over you, and I just got really claustrophobic. And it was not a good experience.
Okay, you didn't enjoy it.
No.
I only did it one time. I enjoyed it. It felt I felt a little gross floating in water that I'm pretty, other people
recirculated.
Right. Yeah. I guess you're right. It probably is filtered and stuff, but there's so much salt in it. I just figured it's kind of hard to filter. And I was worried the whole time that water's going to get in my ear. That was my one concern, but it was a good experience.
We do Epsom salt baths quite regularly.
Okay. Specifically for a little chase?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just trying to kind of flush out things.
Yeah. He's got, he deals with off and on constipation, so it helps with that and just relaxing his bowels and detox in general.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Great. Anything else? Should we cover most what we wanted to?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, this is the other thing as far as you helping other people that experience this. I guess when you guys were first getting into this, you said 08-ish, which that's before Facebook, right? Was it Facebook and those?
No. I was in Facebook in college. Was one of the first, yeah.
Maybe I'm thinking of the iPhone. The iPhone came out in 2007, I think.
I don't remember. I mean, I had Facebook. I think the groups were fairly new.
Okay.
We definitely didn't have groups at first, all the groups of people and
so back then you did have social media to get in contact with others.
And we even I think I had Instagram, not immediately when he was born, but pretty close afterwards. But it wasn't anything like it is now.
Right. Yep. And speaking of, people can get in touch with you and see your work at, is it your Instagram handle, Maggie Herndon Art?
It is. Mm-hmm.
So that's not, we didn't even talk about that.
Yeah, that's
You're an
a
artist.
whole other thing.
It's actually pretty legit, I must say. It's really good.
I started that. I mean, I've always dabbled with art. I've always loved it. But that actually was the avenue I started to raise money for Panama.
Oh, wow.
So I just didn't feel right asking for handouts.
Sure.
So I was like, this is a way I can give something to someone, but also use the money to help Chase.
Yeah. Yep. Maggie Herndon Art on Instagram.
Thanks.
Buy the art and be blessed. Maggie, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.